Welcome to Shielded. I'm your host, Jo Lintzen, and today we're joined by Geri Revay, Principal Security Researcher at Fortinet's FortiGuard Labs. With more than 15 years of experience in security research, ethical hacking, malware analysis, and penetration testing, Geri works at the front line of threat intelligence, helping protect enterprises, governments, and critical infrastructure from evolving cyber threats.
Sounds great.
That's great, right? Yeah. Welcome to Shielded, Geri.
Thank you.
It's very nice to have you. So obviously today is day 2 of Mobile World Congress here in Barcelona. And I do believe you had a session today at the Security Summit.
Yeah, it's the GSMA Security Summit.
Which was a presentation and then I think a panel discussion.
Correct.
And it was titled Intelligence in Action, Predict, Prevent, Protect. So I'm curious about, your takeaways. How did it go? Did you get any silly questions or good questions?
Unfortunately, it wasn't very interactive, but I think it went on. So my talk specifically was about fighting AI with AI. So this is one of my research I did recently to look at how threat actors or attackers are using AI and how defenders can use AI. And I basically compare these two to try to figure out who has the advantage at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think the audience liked it. So for the people I talked to, they were very happy with it.
Nice.
The panel discussion was also interesting. There was more general about threat intelligence and how to use threat intelligence, how to make it actionable, and also things like how to present the idea of security operations to your CFO, how to get budget, these kind of topics. Yeah,
not unimportant.
No, absolutely not.
Great. Well, before we dive deeper into the topic, I think as we spoke before the podcast, you've described yourself as a hacker at heart. So I'm curious to hear a little more about, what motivates you, what drew you into the profession in the first place, what, kind of influenced you to choose that career path.
Yeah, I think there was something there when I was a kid. I was the kind of kid who would take things apart, but not necessarily put them together.
A tinkerer.
Yeah, so I definitely like to take things apart. Getting into security, was relatively spontaneous during my studies. So at the time in Hungary, where I originally come from, you had the 5 years university degree. And for me, that was 3 years like basics, let's say, and then 2 years of specialization. And originally I wanted to do robotics, but then I realized that that's a lot of math.
Right.
So I quickly looked into alternatives, and then that kind of security caught me. I didn't really figure out at the time why, but it definitely pulled me into. I didn't really dodge the mathematics part because we did get into encryption, and so I did calculate RSA on paper, which is not a fun thing to do.
Not 2048 bit.
But yeah, since then I'm working in security. I first worked in quality assurance for a security vendor. Then I wanted to go more in the direction of security instead of generic software development. So that's when I started to do penetration testing or ethical hacking.
Dive quite deep at that.
Yeah, actually, I like to do that. I kind of the challenging technical parts kind of attracts. So I went into pen testing, which I did a long time, most of it at Siemens in Germany. I also started to work more on offensive security research, and then in 2021, when I switched to Fortinet, that's when I switched to the defense side. And originally, I again wanted to go deeper in a technical topic. So I wanted to do more reverse engineering, and malware reverse engineering is the more interesting use case to do that. So that's why I switched to Fortinet. And now my job is a mixture of technical research in reverse engineering and threat intelligence. And then the less typical part of talking about all these things on conferences or, supporting my colleagues, with threat intelligence or delivering threat intel briefs to customers and, partners.
And I imagine it helps that you've seen sort of the different sides of the equation.
Yeah, I think
you can think in those different terms.
Absolutely. I wanted to, the whole idea that I wanted to switch to the defense side is to become more, let's say, rounded as a security professional. Right. So not just to have the view of the attacker that I usually had when I was doing pen testing, but to understand exactly how defenses work and how we can build better defenses, because pen testing is fun, but at the end of the day, what we want is to build better security.
Right.
And that's much better achievable on the defense side.
Right. So, looking at the challenge from all those different, viewpoints and, given your career spanning over a decade, what would you say are current trends that really stand out, that you see in your daily work? And, how obviously you already use, to say AI to protect AI to attack, right? So that's all around the use of AI and how that changed the game a little bit. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Regarding the trend, I would say, we kind of call it the industrialization of cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the beginning we had like individual hackers, doing bad things, often not with bad intention, just, for the sake of it.
Yeah. The script kiddie in the basement, the buddy in,
but then it's as it became profitable to do hacking, it became a business. And we clearly saw in that instead of like the one hacker breaking in, stealing the data, selling the data, all these responsibilities split between teams. So now we have initial access brokers who only focus on getting the access, but then sell it, but they don't do the ransomware deployment or any of the rest of the kill chain. We have, let's say, ransomware authors or ransomware-as-a-service providers whose focus is to write the malware itself and provide the additional services like the negotiation and all these kind of things around the ransomware operation. But they're not the team who is gonna use the ransomware. So they sell that as well. So there are all these different teams, and
so it's a supply chain in the end.
Exactly. And it became, because of that, it became much easier to become a cyber criminal, because you don't have to do all this hacking yourself.
Right.
You can buy the access from an initial access broker. You can buy your ransomware from ransomware-as-a-service provider. They even do the negotiation for you. You just log in, do a little bit of hacking to get around and decode ransomware. And then basically, you are through with your part of the chain. Mm-hmm. And so this was the previous step. And now where we're going from this is what we call the industrialization, which means that it's being scaled up, especially like cybercrime. It becomes very opportunistic, automated, and because of that, happens on a much higher scale.
Right.
And much faster than we were used to, let's say 5 years ago. And obviously, AI has a big part in this.
Yeah. I'm imagining some of those, effects wouldn't have been possible. Attacks wouldn't have been possible.
Exactly.
Before AI.
Exactly. The whole automation part, is partially because of the capabilities that the AI provides to the threat actors as well. Generally, like I was talking about, for instance, whether a malware is AI generated or written by a human, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter from a detection point of view, because it's the same malware, let's say. It will be interesting once AI will be capable of innovating, so creating new techniques.
New variants out of something that's...
Exactly, new things, new tactics. Then it will be different. But now it's basically creating the same type of malware, but where it differs is that they can do this much faster. because they don't have to sit down and write the malware, but they can do it with some kind of AI coding tool. So speed is definitely something that's increased because of the AI capabilities.
So, I mean, besides the bad guys being able to use those tools, I mean, obviously they're also available to ethical hackers, but then also available for defensive activities, right? So how has that changed, sort of the job of the defender, so to speak, and how are, ethical hackers using those tools as well?
I mean, if we compare the two sides, the attackers using AI and defenders using AI, then on the basis, the capabilities are the same. So we have similar opportunities on both sides to use AI. A good example for that is vulnerability research. So, vulnerability research to find security bugs in software, that's a very difficult thing to do. So it's not something that many people can do magically.
Yeah.
And now
It's a very specific skill. Yeah.
And now we see that, many AI systems are capable of doing this. And so the first idea people have is that, this is going to be such a game changer for attackers because they can look for 0 days and they will be, exploiting 0 days left and right, which is true to some degree, but we have the same opportunity on the defense side. So this is also a huge opportunity for vendors to
up their game as well.
Similarly, use these AI tools to find those vulnerabilities in their software before attackers have the chance to go out there. Yeah. So that's just an example of how it's relatively balanced.
Right.
On the attacker side, there are a couple of things where they have the advantage. I think one key point is that they don't have ethical and moral limitations. Like they don't have
artificial guardrails.
Yeah, they don't have to think about how this is going to affect society and employee burnout or whatnot. There is a new technology they can deploy immediately.
Right.
Another benefit or advantage for the attackers is social engineering. So obviously this was the first place where when ChatGPT came out, it was immediately used in phishing attacks, which is, I find it kind of embarrassing for hackers that they needed artificial intelligence to write grammatically correct emails.
Right.
But now they have it, so they can do it. And then we have all the different kinds of deep fakes that we see, whether it's some kind of fraud, like calling up the CFO as the CEO or pretending to be the CEO to tell them to transfer money somewhere, or the whole North Korean IT worker scheme, where you do the whole recruitment process and then also team meetings later on when they are already at the organization, with deep fakes, and things like that. So, AI for social engineering is definitely something that is very useful for the attackers, but not too useful on the defense side. On the defense side, I think the biggest advantage is that we have a lot of data. So, AI lives off of data. So it basically eats data for breakfast. And we have a lot of data on the defense side, whether it's your security operations with all the logs you collected. If somebody runs the security operations and they look at the bill that they are paying for storing all that thing, all those data, they know that they have a lot of data. So, and also in network operations, basically the whole detection and monitoring part is about collecting data and analyzing data. So once we start to operationalize that data with AI, that's a huge opportunity for defenders to have an advantage there.
Yeah, and so a lot of that data that you mentioned also gets used to generate threat reports. I think you're doing like a yearly threat report. Leveraging that data that gets collected over time. So, do you see any new patterns in that data? Like, is there anything that stands out over the last few years in that threat report where you go like, oh, we've never seen a spike here before. Why is that?
I mean, on the global level, it's not that interesting. What I usually do is when I talk to either present on conferences or talk to customers in a specific industry or in a specific region, like let's say in a country, like let's say we are in Spain. If we look at the telemetry for Spain, or we are at the Mobile World Congress, when we look at the telemetry for telco, that's where we can get the insight. So
where to break it down more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think with threat intelligence, it's really important that it's not just about collecting the data. Actually, the more we can filter out the noise, the better information we get. So let's say often when I go to a country, I look at the telemetry and I compare it to the global telemetry or the EMEA telemetry, just to see the differences. Like, for instance, I look at brute force attacks, and we can see from our detection data that which protocols are brute force more on an EMEA level. But then when we go deeper into a specific country, then we get a total different pictures. So that shows us that if you are operating in that country, then you should focus on those protocols that are in the top 3, let's say, when you want to do brute force detections.
You can make much more informed decisions on where
exactly
your defensive capabilities need to be improved. Right?
Yeah. And generally to threat intelligence, a very important aspect is that it's about answering questions. So we need to ask the right questions. And the right questions might not necessarily come from a threat intelligence team. That could come from business, that could come from leadership. And basically the threat intelligence team is there to provide
meaningful answers and evidence.
Exactly, evidence-based answers to those particular questions. But these should be, well formulated, as specific questions as we can. So because that's how it becomes actionable.
Yeah. So speaking of, I think, different verticals and different markets, you personally, but then also Fortinet as a company, obviously you have a lot of experience also in the operational technology. There's a lot said about IT/OT convergence and all these things. I'm curious to hear your take on it. Like, what's special about OT, and how different are maybe those attack vectors that you see emerging over time?
Yeah, so OT is challenging for various reasons. So, historically it kind of grew together, grew separately from IT,
right?
And you can even see that in the language. So when I started to work with OT and I started to talk to OT people, I realized that we don't really understand each other. Things are called differently. It's a computer, but they call it HMI, so human machine interface, but it's still a computer, or PC. So there is this human level differences as well. So it's challenging to communicate, and the priorities are very different. So in IT, the crown jewel is the data. That's why kind of ransomware is the perfect crime against IT, because you're stealing the crown jewel and sending it back to the original owner. And in OT, the crown jewel is the operations. So the availability. It doesn't mean that ransomware doesn't work there, because exactly, even though we call these machines differently, but they are still like normal PCs, they are Windows and Linux machines, many of them. So, a commodity ransomware will work there as well.
Input comes in, compute happens, output gets delivered. Right?
Yeah, nobody will care what the data was that it was encrypted on that machine. But if you run a ransomware on a human machine interface, which is basically, what you see in a control center on the wall. Right. So if that goes dark, then you don't have visibility in their operations anymore, and everybody will shut down the operations just because they don't see what's happening. So it's a safety issue at this point. So one challenge is the difference between IT and OT. The priorities between the two environments. but also how everything is handled. So in OT, you must be much more careful of what you're putting there. That's why OT operators have challenges building security in OT, because they don't want to put security products often in the environment, because they are afraid that it will somehow influence the environment rightly. Like, let's say there are OT environments where there's a real-time requirement, which says that I think it's like 4 milliseconds that communication has to happen so that we can call it real-time. And if you start putting things in between, then you might
cascades through the system.
Exactly. You might
delays,
lose this real-time capability. So that's one issue, but also that because security was not a priority for a long time in OT.
A lot of those systems just weren't really connected to anything.
They are not ready to deal with random data that could arrive to them. I was once on a conference, and there was a presentation about healthcare security. And the first thing the guy said is that never do a network scan in a hospital, because there are all kinds of machines connected to the network, but also to patients, like an insulin pump. And it's going to crash if you just send a random network packet inside there. So you have to be really careful. And
you get that safety aspect.
Exactly. But it's also what kind of trained the OT organizations to be very careful of manipulating the environment. And because of that, they have to be careful about what security products they put there.
So rule number one in IT cybersecurity is patches. Like, always stay up to date with everything, right? And I hear with OT oftentimes the terms like the no patch sort of mindset almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And the never touch a running system joke is absolutely true in OT. But the good thing is you still have capabilities that you can do in OT. Like something I really like is deception technology in OT, because it's passive. So basically you put decoys in your network. And
is a decoy the same thing as a honeypot? Or is it where's the difference?
So honeypot is a more a simplistic version. Let's say it emulates a service to some degree, but it doesn't provide the full aspect. So when I talk about decoys, it could be a PLC, so a programmable logic controller that you use in OT.
Much more sophisticated than
exactly. Or you can create the decoy for your domain controller. Or I think what's very useful in OT is one really good point to catch attacks is the IT OT bridge, because usually the threat actors are compromising the IT, and then they are looking for a way into the OT environment. Exactly. Usually there is some kind of jump post or something that allows that. So for one, you can really secure that machine. Like you can lock it down as much as possible. There you can put EDR. There you can, to process whitelisting, etc. But you can also create a decoy breach. So basically a decoy jump post, and you can put like lures in the IT network where if the attacker goes there, then
you guide them.
Even you can make it easier to get into that machine as well. Like maybe the password there is easy to guess, just to attract them to go into that. And the good thing with deception is that we say that there are no false positives, because every interaction is a suspicious interaction. Like nobody should, especially in OT. That's the advantage of OT, that there shouldn't be random traffic in the OT environment. So
something's fishy
exactly if something connects to your decoy, there is a very, very high chance that it's malicious. And by entertaining the attackers on these decoys, you also collect threat intelligence, because you see what they are trying to do, which can help your incident response in the remediation effort.
So then you layer on top of, no patch, and, the need to be in a real-time environment. And then you have devices that are in the field for a very long time.
Exactly.
And then they're extremely resource constrained. And so, that's sort of the bundle of challenges that you get with OT. And I'm curious to hear your perspective as well on those long-lived devices. Obviously, a lot of them are already in use for 10 years and have cryptography baked in. So do you see a lot of challenges arising from that as well, where people are concerned about using those algorithms that are 10 years old, 20 years old?
Mm-hmm. For one, we have the devices where there's no cryptography built in, right? So that's I guess that's the first time. But
everything's open.
But you're right. So as we are reaching, or we are advancing the capabilities of quantum computing, this is going to be definitely a challenge because it's not something you need to fix when the attackers have the capability to decrypt. Because at that time they probably already had the data they want to decrypt. So the data that they are going to decrypt with their quantum computers at some point is they already have that.
Right.
So they are already harvesting that data, whether it's OT or IT. I think at this point doesn't matter. But they definitely collect the data, and once they have the capability, they will do the decryption.
So that's the oftentimes mentioned harvest now, decrypt later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that something that you see in your threat data as well? Like, has that always been the case, or has sort of that data harvesting, has that increased over the last period of time?
Unfortunately, I haven't looked at this specifically, but data exfiltration did happen in various scenarios. So in espionage attacks where they are really after the data,
right.
I think that's where this is most relevant, because they will extract the data if they have the capability or
and that can be company secrets or government secrets, right?
Exactly. And
targeted.
When we talk about espionage, these are usually advanced persistence threats. So often nation states attackers, and
so the complete opposite of the script kiddie.
Exactly. It's
unlimited,
quite opposite. You have budgets, very
human
skilled,
resources,
very skilled attackers, very deep know-how in everything around their attacks, and their main goal is to get in and stay under the radar as long as possible, and
stay undetected. Basically.
What they exfiltrate during their time, it's really up to them. So it's absolutely possible that they find data that they consider potentially useful, but they don't have the capability to decrypt at this point. They might even look for decryption keys that are available, but if not, it might still make sense to take them out. Also note that since they are state-sponsored attackers, probably they will be the first who have access to quantum computers, because it's again a part of the supply chain of state-sponsored actors. Let's put it this way.
You think there's going to be a press release once they have?
Yes, probably not.
Likely not. Yeah. So I think another really powerful tool that the defensive side has is sharing of data, sharing of information. So how important, from your point of view, is that to sort of strengthen the good guys in that impossible job to protect, so to say.
It's absolutely important, and I'm personally, but also Fortinet, we are big believers in threat intelligence sharing. So actually, it's my team which is responsible for threat intel partnerships. So what that means is that we work with many organizations such as the Cyber Threat Alliance or the World Economic Forum to share threat intelligence and also work together on various projects. We support law enforcement, such as Interpol or FBI and some local law enforcement as well, when they have questions to their investigations. Unfortunately, that's usually a one-way street, so they ask, but they don't share.
You don't learn anything from it.
At least not at that point. So once the investigation is closed, then we have the opportunity to learn about it. But yeah, it's a bit different.
It's more a post-mortem than for you to.
Exactly. But yeah, it's understandable. But we also work together directly with national CERTs and national cybersecurity centers, depending on how they are called in different countries. Because they also do a really good work, but usually they are very focused on their jurisdiction, the country they are operating in. So we try to support them with the intelligence that we create, but they are also often helpful to us because they also share what they see. We can reach out if we learn about an attack in a specific country. We can reach out
to your viewpoint.
Yeah, get malware samples and these kind of things. So I think intelligence sharing is a key part of cyber defense. But luckily this is very accepted in the threat intel community. So even if it goes to, vendors that are competitors on a threat intelligence sharing level, we still like to work together because the idea is that we are not competing on this part. We are competing on who can build a better defense. Right. So, but intelligence sharing is important because nobody has the full view of what's happening out there. Because people companies have different
angles of looking at
exactly based on their deployment, based on geographical limitations, etc. So only by sharing intelligence can we have all a better picture of what's happening out there.
The rising tide that lifts all the boats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, looping back into AI, and, looking at the advancements of in just the last, 6 to 9 months, like if you look ahead, do you think that the development and, improvements in AI are going to play more into the cards of the attackers, the defenders, and why?
So my current conclusion based on my research is that attackers have the advantage of speed. So in a short term, they have an advantage, as I mentioned, because they can deploy new innovations faster. But I believe in the long term, defenders have the advantage because of the available data and because we will be able to deploy AI in the whole defense in depth structure. So it's not just one layer where we want to use AI, but we can really create the different layers of AI based security. So currently how we define that is so Fortinet's strategy is that we define 3 main AI defense layers, the protect, assist, and secure AI. So protect is basically using AI technologies in protections. So this is not a new thing. So before ChatGPT, nobody wanted to hear about AI, but we were actually working on it.
Before it was called AI, there was machine learning, and before that,
exactly. So we started to work on AI technologies like 20 years ago. And so we had machine learning for malware clustering. We had machine learning for web URL analysis. Then we have AI supported behavior analysis in the different products where we see behavior, whether it's on the network level in NDR or in an endpoint with EDR.
Or see patterns that
exactly
shift.
Because we can find a baseline and we can see anomalies in that. So we're using these technologies in the last 20 years. We are enhancing that now with the newer AI technologies, but that's the main concept of AI protections, to use AI technologies in building new type of protections. And now the assist layer is what generally we mean by AI right now, which is a generative AI or agentic AI, where we have some kind of AI assistant in a security product. So we have that again for multiple purposes, like in the network operations. You can ask the AI assistant about where you have performance issues in your network, and the AI assistant then generate the new firewall configuration.
And that's going to happen much faster.
Exactly.
Doing it manually or looking for open ports or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. But similarly, in the security operations, you can have an AI assistant that can enrich the alert that is coming in, or tell you,
give more context around it.
Exactly. Tell you which threat actors usually are using these techniques that you are seeing. And with the agentic AI level, then you can also use automation together with AI and the human analyst to automatically analyze alerts, but also to respond to alerts depending on how what you decide. So there are a lot of capabilities there. So that was the second layer, the assist.
Yeah.
And then we have the third layer, which is the
AI protect.
No, that's the secure AI.
Oh, secure AI.
Because what we haven't talked about yet, but it's very important, is AI systems are also becoming a significant attack surface.
Right.
So especially because everybody is hurrying into deploying AI. So I just called the doctor like a few weeks ago and reached an AI assistant there. So everybody is, which is totally understandable. It's an amazing technology and it really impacts, every part of our lives. But we have to understand that all the AI systems that we are building and exposing is becoming an attack surface, and we've seen very complex AI systems hacked by researchers, with an email or with a calendar invite. So there were various examples to interesting attacks, and the reason for that is because generally complexity is the enemy of security.
Right.
So the more complex system you build,
the more vulnerable it's going to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you take, let's say, a huge enterprise environment and you start connecting things with AI, then it's immediately becoming extremely complex.
All bets are off.
Yeah, basically. And tested AI systems is also becoming a new skill that, for instance, penetration testers need to figure out. It's a very different way of hacking them than it was traditionally. So my point is that it's a huge attack surface. So we have to think about how we are protecting this attack surface. Often, whether an AI system is created by your organization or you buy it from somebody else, you don't really know what kind of security measures are there. So it's worth to think about how you can surround this system with security. And that's kind of the secure AI layer to provide these capabilities, whether it's about looking at the input that goes into an AI system to detect prompt injection or detect that your employees are trying to send confidential documents to public LLMs, or looking at how agents communicating with each other, and to see that maybe somebody is trying to take over the control of the agents and they're doing something weird. Or you can look at the end, what is the output that is coming out from an AI system? Is it meaningful, or is it somehow influenced, or can you see any kind of malicious intent in it? So these are all very important questions, and that's where we try. These are what we try to insert with the secure AI layer of our AI strategy.
The three layers. Yeah. So do you see any blind spots? Because that sounds like you're addressing, all variations of protecting AI, protecting with AI, and then using AI to enrich your data as well. Is there anything that you would say, blind spot or something that is underestimated that no one's really looking at yet in sort of again going forward the next maybe 12, 18 months?
It's so the first thing that came to my mind is prompt injection. I wouldn't say it's a blind spot because we know about it. But learning from the past, I think it's gonna be a really difficult thing to control. When I was
So history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Because if we had the SQL injections,
exactly, it's exactly my point. So I don't know how technically want to go in these topics, but so since I was doing pen testing, like cross-site scripting, which is a very typical web attack, or a SQL injection, which is also very typical attack. These techniques have been known for, I don't know, 30 years. So for a very long time.
But 30 years ago, it took us a while to figure it out.
Yeah, but even today, there are so many systems still vulnerable to these same vulnerabilities because it's just so easy to overlook them.
Or to have like unpatched systems, or I mean, you were talking about hospitals, and famously known for using old technology,
exactly.
in quite crucial environments. Right.
So I'm afraid a little bit that prompt injection is going to be a similar thing that we know about it, but still it's going to be there for a long time. Even when we have the capabilities to detect it, which is still, it's more difficult than, with traditional attack, because it's really depends on how the AI system interprets the input that it's getting.
It's quite subtle.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a difficult thing to detect, and especially every aspect of it, because we also have to be aware of the inputs that are going into an AI system, which could be basically anything. So it's not just the prompt that you are sending to the AI assistant, but also the different documents that these AI agents are going to pull together and try to understand it to make the decisions.
Almost that long tail of
in any of them there could be some kind of malicious input. So but probably the bigger challenge is going to be the people who just don't look into it, right? So even when we will have the know-how and the capability, there will be organizations, whether it's vendors or users or whoever, who will be just not aware of the problem.
So the biggest threat vector is going to remain the human in the end.
Yeah, to some degree, yes. So that's exactly, that's not going to go away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So where do you send people that want to learn a bit more about your work, or find out about the threat report? Send me any place you want to point people to.
So I'm relatively active on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn as Geri Revay. So just search for me. Since it's a Hungarian name, there are not so many people on LinkedIn, so you will find me. And wherever something comes out, whether it's my personal take on something, or whether it's like the threat landscape report that we write, then I will post it on LinkedIn. At Fortinet, there's a FortiGuard.com. So that's where we post outbreak alerts and different threat intel outcomes that we produce. There you can also see some of the telemetry data that we publish. And if you want to go into more in-depth analysis, then on the Fortinet blog, there's a threat research part where the different teams from FortiGuard often document deep dives into attacks.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for joining us today, Geri. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thanks for sharing your insights and your knowledge. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, enjoy the next few days at Mobile World Congress.
Yeah, will do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And today we're joined by Haon Park, co-founder and CTO at AIM Intelligence. Haon leads a team focused on securing AI agents and enterprise AI systems through automated red teaming, policy-driven guardrails, and continuous risk testing across multimodal AI. Did I say that right?
Yes, correct.
Perfect. Very nice to meet you, Haon. Thanks for joining us today.
You as well.
So obviously it's day 4 here, MWC in Barcelona. How are you feeling? How was the week?
Yeah, it was a very busy week. A lot of meetings. There has been definitely a lot of interest in AI security and safety solutions, especially with how fast the adoption of new agents and audio services has been. So yeah, it has been a great couple of days.
That's great. And then you said you had 2 locations where you...
Yeah, so we had 2 different booths. We had one booth with the 4 years from now. So we're one of the semifinalists for that. So we're the top 20 startups. We also had a booth with the LGU Plus sector as well.
Great. So did you get a lot of traffic?
Yeah, since we had 2 different booths, I think times 2 the traffic.
Yeah.
Different locations.
Yeah.
So.
And if I'm not mistaken, you were brave enough to do live demos on your booth?
Yes, we did a lot of live demos. We did this for some big enterprises as well, and they were quite surprised with the results. So we will be having some interesting leads.
That's great. That's great. So your work, Haon, obviously sits right on the, frontier. Like you're pushing the boundary, moving the boundary as AI safety and security. So I'm curious, what first pulled you into that area? Like what was it that, caught your interest and led to you founding AIM Intelligence eventually?
Yeah. So it's been about 1.5 years since we founded our company. But before that, my background was in red team hacker. As when the first models began coming out, like ChatGPT 3.5, I was doing my mandatory military service in Korea. So I had a lot of free time. And I've got really deep into red teaming these models, discovering a lot of different vulnerabilities. And when I finished my military service, there was this big AI hacking challenge, which I participated. And that's where I met our current CEO and co-founder. And we both received first and second place. So we, discussed some of these challenges we had. And our CEO, he had an idea that red teaming hacking should be automated into an actual technical solution. And this was the perspective that I hadn't thought before because I was doing all of this manually. So we realized this is going to be a very big issue in the near future and decided to build an enterprise-grade solution for this.
Great. Yeah. So I guess your background in research really informed your approach to that whole endeavor as well.
Yeah.
So AIM Intelligence, you position yourself as the security layer for AI across industries. Really, it's not for a specific vertical. So what does securing AI agents actually mean for someone who's maybe just starting the AI journey or just wading into the water?
Yeah. So there are different forms of how companies are using AI. Some of them are just the foundation model. They're building the foundation model, or some of these companies are applying these AI models into actual services. These could be in the form of chatbots or internal agents that have access to company data or for their employees to use. So each of these different use cases comes with different vulnerabilities. For companies that are building foundation model, some of the biggest risk is people using these models for illegal purposes or unethical purposes, or making it generate chemical and biological weapon synthesis, or how to make homemade pipe bombs, or how to groom miners on Discord. So these are some of the issues that the foundation model companies are very put a lot of resource into preventing. And when we move into companies using these models for services, every country and every company has different policies, different regulations, different rules that they have to ensure that their service or chatbot is compliant with. And that's quite difficult to truly ensure that it is kind of under their control and is behaving the way they want it to do. So these are kind of some problems that we're solving for them. And when we move into internal agents, when these agents have access to company database, for example, like an HR agent, then attacking these agents can lead to leakage of these data, or if the agent makes a mistake or hallucination, it can lead to modifying company data. So these are some of the issues internally as well
that you see.
So it's quite a wide range of vulnerability solutions.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're also automating in such a way that you're using AI systems to attack other AI systems.
Yes.
So it's sort of an automated red teaming. So how is that different from traditional cybersecurity penetration testing, which is also quite automated these days? And
yeah. So before we move into the cybersecurity sector, to share a little bit about the automated AI red teaming side, when the first models began coming out, there were a lot of human red teamers, and these companies would hire these human hackers to perform like manual testing on their AI models or AI services. But the problem is a human red team hacker cannot do a full comprehensive test. And it also takes a lot of money and resource and time. So there has to be an automated red teaming solution to find these vulnerabilities in a comprehensive way. So that's why we're building a red teaming solution that almost behaves like a real human red team hacker, but also has very high attack success rate. You can customize the goals and target. And since we have this attacker agent, you can deploy this at a massive scale, like have hundreds of these attacker agents at the same time attacking a target, which means we can find the vulnerabilities much faster and also in a more comprehensive, broader spectrum.
More bigger scale, shorter time. Yeah. So through that work, what are some of the most common failures that you find in those testing activities?
So when we perform a red teaming, we actually claim we have 100% attack success rate on all of the currently available models. So what that means is all the models out currently are very vulnerable. We can make it still generate anything that we want it to, even if you try to add rules to system problems or try to come up with a guardrail solution. It's still very easy to bypass these guardrails. For example, Anthropic is one of the leading company in AI safety. They launched some of the world's safest models, for example, Claude Opus 4.6 a couple weeks ago. But when they launched the model in just 10 minutes, we were still very easily able to jailbreak the model in 10 minutes of launch, making it generate very dangerous chemical and biological weapon synthesis, which is the very topic Anthropic has spent billions of dollars to prevent with. And these models are being applied to, enterprise services or chatbots and agents, which means all the vulnerabilities are transferred indirectly. And a lot of red teaming is still very easy and possible in all of these services and models.
No, you just used the term guardrails. Can you explain that?
Yes.
Like what are guardrails?
So guardrail is a solution to kind of prevent these attacks prevent or detecting these adversarial attacks, and also controlling what the output of the chatbot and models. And there are different approaches to this. Sometimes it comes down to just fine-tuning the model with specific curated safety data. These are some of the model provider companies do. Another solution is to have an external guardrail or external model that is checking the input data and the output data to, see if there's any attacks or any data leakage or private information leakage. From those two different options, we do the latter one, where we have a external third-party guardrail solution that we provide to our customers and clients. And having an external guardrail makes it easy to customize it without having to touch what's in the inside of your model. Because all you have to do is modify the guardrail to incorporate the hardware dependent, and also easily upgradable. Because there's no 100% guardrail currently. The best guardrail is a guardrail that can be improved over time. Yeah.
So with all of this, I would imagine that partnerships are really important.
Yes.
So maybe you can speak a little bit about the partnerships that you do have, that you're working on to getting as well.
Yeah. So we work with a lot of these big tech companies in US as well. Since we have this very high attack success rate red teaming tools, we work with OpenAI to test their guardrails before they launched 3 months ago, discovering these vulnerabilities, edge cases, so that they can improve it before launch. We also tested models with Anthropic before they launch the actual models in more sensitive topics like chemical and biological weapons. These are big topics that they're very wary of. And for providing our guardrails, we usually partner with more of the traditional cybersecurity companies because they already have these client base and they have the pipeline to deploy the solutions on premise. And since our guardrail also has to be deployed on premises, it has been a good partnership with us.
Yeah, that route to market.
Yes. And another partnership that has been helpful was companies that are doing AI projects for the enterprises, like the building a chatbot system or HR chatbot. So we just add the security layer to that big project. So that's another way we have worked with.
So you just bring that extra layers or siblings are a big project.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that a lot of those guardrails, as you just laid out and explained, are policy driven. So maybe you can speak a little bit about, how those policies are made and also how they are enforced. I would imagine the more, flexible and independent an AI model is. And, if you automate, how do you enforce that? Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, every company from different industries have so many different and unique policies that they have to ensure and comply with. And also when we move into different regions and countries, the laws are all very different. So these enterprises need a way to kind of apply these policies to the guardrails or their AI service. And that is why we're providing a very highly customizable guardrail. So very easily with just natural language, they can just add these policies and it's maybe like good and bad cases, add examples, and this is applied directly to our guardrail without having to go through any fine tuning or data curation. And once they have this set up, since we also have the red teaming attacker, we run the red teaming attacker to find if all of these policies are actually being applied. And of course, some edge cases will be discovered. And those edge cases can be directly updated to our guardrail policy because we have a system called AutoForge, where these edge cases will be incorporated into the guardrail policies, like adding rules or combining rules or removing rules. And then going through this loop maybe a couple times will ensure that it's much more robust in ensuring all of these policies are kept, while also ensuring no adversary attacks or any unwanted behavior is happening.
No, in that feedback loop, are there any humans involved, or is that all machine-driven, automated?
Yeah. So the individual process itself is automated, but of course there can be manual customization within that. Let's say, looking through, this is another policy that I have to add, and you can just, add the policy yourself, run the test again. But updating the policies, the red teaming itself, and the guardrails are all individual automated components. Yeah.
So one of the things that you mentioned is that, cybersecurity, traditional cybersecurity is a little different to AI risk and as, the topics that are important in that context. Now, what is the mindset shift that needs to happen for, say, a CISO, who needs to protect against these attacks that you're describing as well?
So what I think that is very interesting about AI security is, if you look at traditional cybersecurity, one of the most vulnerable attack vector is the humans themselves. For example, like phishing emails or spam messages to get passwords or whatever. Those were some of the most vulnerable endpoints for traditional cybersecurity.
Social engineering.
But now with the age of AI, we're replacing those humans with AI agents or AI services. But before, we were able to keep the humans who made the mistakes or were attacked accountable. Right. Maybe by firing or disciplinary factors or, legal or policies for this management as people. But when we replace these with AI agents, how are we going to keep those agents responsible for these attacks or accountable? And these agents are now given more and more authority, more data, more access, more autonomy. And the attacks are coming into these agents. And for traditional cybersecurity, attacks against the infrastructure, you can just list up these vulnerabilities and block them. But for the agents, they have to have these authorities and control to be able to do the actions they're supposed to do. So while maintaining that, you also have to prevent these attacks. So it's a quite interesting landscape for AI security because even like social engineering is involved to manipulate these agents.
Right.
So there has to be a shift in the mindset. And I think even now there are a lot of these news and vulnerabilities incidents happening involving AI agents. It definitely has to be considered by CISOs as well.
Yeah. And then I think the other mindset that needs revisiting, if not shifting, is that, of course, everyone who talks about AI thinks chatbots first, right? But of course, there's other modes of, right? There's video, audio, besides all the textual things as well. So how does that change the equation, looking at all those different modes?
Yeah. So we're already seeing very fast development of these multimodal AI systems that, for example, generates image and video or receives image and vision and audio as input. And we're incorporating these models into, for example, autonomous drones or vision-based self-driving cars. And since it receives these image or audio as an input, these could be different attack vectors. So we do a lot of this research at AIM Intelligence as well, where attacks can come in through the visual input. We had a hacking challenge to hack a VLM-based self-driving car, where the hackers were supposed to manipulate the input image that goes into the self-driving car. And the first place, with a very small black text in the image, was enough to trick the self-driving car to drive through a group of people. And since it's very small, this can be placed on like t-shirts or hats or billboards, or in the military setting as well. For example, tricking the drone to not detect the soldiers, or also even inject actions into the drone to make it fall out of the sky. So these are also more frontier areas, but red teaming and guardrails for these situations also has to be very heavily considered.
Yeah. Well, and that's certainly one thing that I noticed, walking the floor at MWC. A lot more booths now showing autonomous systems, robotics systems. There was one booth, they had fighting robots. I don't know if you managed to see that as well. So I wonder, how do you control or put guardrails around, autonomous systems that are also physically autonomous?
Yeah. So I think the ultimate challenge for AI safety is physical AI safety, because it can actually impact the physical world and also cause physical damage to humans as well. So the way we are tackling that problem is physical AI also receives multimodal input. It receives the visual input, audio instructions or whatever. And those could be attack vectors. So we have to do the red team for those to find what vulnerabilities there are before, and also add multimodal guardrails to be able to detect attacks from audio or image. So the input part is already quite covered, but the difficult part for physical AI is the output of these robots when these robots are doing autonomous action. Because to control the robot action, we have to understand what this autonomous robot is trying to do. Right. And that's quite difficult. There's two different ways for this. One way is to have a external view or camera of the current robot situation to kind of, in a live situation, know what the robot is doing. But the problem for that is you can only do that indoors. We can't do that outdoors, or especially parts of the location. Yeah. So the other way is to do this within the robot using the current EO-centric view of the robot, what is currently seen, and trying to identify what it's trying to do. But the downside of that is any action that is outside of its view, for example, a stabbing motion from kind of starting here, you won't be able to see its action until it already happened. So the approach that we are doing at AIM Intelligence is we have to be able to understand the raw robot motors and use that to interpret what the robot is trying to do.
And then what's going to happen next?
Yeah, what's happening next, and also understand what it's trying to do right now. Because right now, most physical AI receives the instruction, but very soon in the near future, they're going to be doing stuff autonomously, like what you've seen with OpenClaw agents. I think there was an article yesterday where somebody put an OpenClaw agent inside a physical body is doing some stuff by itself. So we're creating a new model that receives the raw motor values as an input and creates the action embedding to be able to kind of map out what it's trying to do. And we will add that to our VLM-based guardrail to combine with what the robot is currently seeing and what the robot is doing currently to make a safe or unsafe decision comparing with the policy that is given. So that's how we're tackling this problem.
So within your system, there's certainly, some type of authentication that needs to happen, authorization to make those policy changes. I wonder how, those controls remain within your system as well? Is there, human in the loop, I think, is a term that's often been used. And then I'm also curious, if those authorization systems are using any type of cryptography, like how you view that, and if there's any, quantum safe thoughts that you're putting into your systems as well.
Authorization is quite a big issue for enterprises because especially when they're having their employees use AI service or AI agents, different departments or employees might have different access. Right. So those also have to be quite customized. So we provide that platform with their guardrail where you can kind of enforce different policies for different sectors or different employees.
Rule-based access control, use
access control. And also, the person who's modifying these policies and controlling also has to have kind of specialized language to So of course, those issues, security issues is a big concern for us. And we try to kind of stay up to date for what's the most latest, methodology to keep this access safe. So quantum safe methodology is quite interesting. And I think that it can definitely be applied to our solution as well. Yeah.
Makes sense. So, looking ahead, the next 6, 12, 18 months, from your point of view, from where you sit, what is the sort of the biggest challenge within all this big AI rollouts and that maybe we're not quite aware of yet? What's your thought on that?
Yeah. So kind of similarly, for AI models and chatbots, there was a big incident, maybe like last year, there was an incident with people like committing suicide or like legal issues. And now early this year and late last year, there has been issues with agents coming up with like breaches, data leakage. And I think in the next year, we will see an incident with physical AI and some of these autonomous systems. There's going to be a major security incident where maybe potentially physical harm to humans might happen. So these are something that we are trying to prepare beforehand to have the solution ready for when these autonomous systems actually roll out to the real world once that occurs. Yeah. And it's moving very fast. So, the AI world is changing very fast. New functions are coming out every single day. So the security safety side has to work very hard to make sure we don't fall behind then.
So what's your recommendation for an enterprise that wants to safely roll out AI today? Like, what are the first concrete steps you recommend it to?
So I think it's very important to know that there are these security and safety issues. A lot of people that I met don't know about the issues. So I think first knowing these issues is the first step to be able to solve these problems. And there are a lot of other companies like us that provide safety and security solutions, like consulting firms as well. Traditional cybersecurity companies also build solutions with us. So talking with some of those experts and trying to find what is the best solution for my current need, I think will be the next step.
Great. And so for our listeners, if they want to follow a bit more on your work, where's the best place? Where would you send them?
Yeah. So I guess you can reach me out on LinkedIn. You can search my name, Haon Park. And also you can also find a contact page in our AIM Intelligence website as well. So those two will be the best methodology to reach out to me.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time. I know we're all busy during MWC, so I appreciate you sharing your insights with us, and have a good rest of the day, last day, and then safe trip home.
Thank you. Thanks, Hal.
Yeah, thank you. The quantum era is already here. With the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right mindset, together we can face it head on. To find out more about PQ Shield and how our cutting-edge solutions can help you secure your data against the quantum threat, visit pqshield.com. Make sure to search for Shielded, the last line of cyber defense, in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Don't forget to click subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at PQ Shield, thanks for listening.